Hey. All right, so today I want to talk with you guys about different styles of rests. What rest should I be using on the front of my rifle? What rest is giving me the most consistency? And this is just my experiments. This is just from things that I feel like I have noticed over the past year on consistency. I've done a lot of my load development off of this. Some of you guys have seen some of my previous videos know I do a lot of my load development, or I start my load development with a chronograph, and I've shot them off of this a lot. But in the past 6 months or so, I've really noticed that so the chrono gives me the numbers that I'm looking for and the powder charge that I'm looking for, then I typically take the chrono off and then I find my seating depth node that I need at the forgiving spot. And I've typically taken the chronograph off and still shot off of this. But I noticed that my groups, when I shot off of this and then later went to the field and I threw on a bipod, that I noticed my groups got more consistent off of a bipod than off of this. And there's some reasons for that, I feel. But also, most of us are not carrying something like this in the field to shoot off of. We're shooting off of a bipod. And so why not do all your shooting off of a bipod? But anyway, so I want to chat about that a little bit. I made a little video out in the field earlier that I'm going to post up here for you guys to take a look at that. Also, I might show you some groups that I shot off of this and then a group that I shot off of bipods, back-to-back groups. Actually, I'll show that to you now. So these groups were shot literally probably 10 minutes apart, just enough time for the barrel to cool. The first group I'm going to show you was shot off of this. And the second group was shot off of a bipod. All right, so ignore the holes in this target except for what I point out. This was shot off of, 4-shot group, was shot off of the micro adjustable rest that is not attached to the gun. 10 minutes later, same rifle, I shot that group, a 3-shot group, off of bipods. And I feel like I shot just as good on either group. I was holding dead steady, shot the same on both groups. I just feel like this comes from because of the rest, this comes from because of the bipod. So I do a lot of my load workups off of this one, up to a certain point. And once I'm ready to really see what this rifle can do, I often shoot them off of bipods because I feel like bipods are more consistent than this style rest. And here's why I say that, and here's what I've learned and what I've seen along my journey. So one reason I like to shoot off of bipods is because that's typically how you end up hunting. This is not normally going with you in the field, so why would you want to shoot it in off of something that you're not going to actually be shooting it off of later when that deer or elk walks out in front of you? But with this style of rest, some things to look out for that will definitely help. I see people shoot these at home. They're great because they're micro-tunable. You can tune them left and right, up and down. They're so tunable. And that's great. You think that's better than a bipod. And it can be great, especially on your low recoiling rounds. They're not too bad. They do okay. But I start seeing some inconsistencies, and here's why. Is because where you set your gun on here matters. If one time you're setting the gun on mid-stock, like here, and the next time up here, you're going to start to see some inconsistencies on that. It's not going to be consistent. A bipod never changes where you set that gun. It's always at the same exact spot. So yesterday I was out here shooting. I shot this. This rifle was shooting really good when this was turned down. Shooting about there. Shooting really good, shooting half MOA or better. Then I needed some elevation, so I turned this thing up to where it was about this high. And at 500 yards, my vertical on that, off of this, my vertical and the inconsistency I got off of it, my vertical was probably 5 or 6 inches. I went to a bipod and shot a 2-inch vertical. Both of those were 3-shot groups. So from this to a bipod, big difference out here in the field. Now, if I could have left this thing close to the ground down, it'd have been more stable. I'd have probably seen some more consistencies. The other thing is, like, this is a little bit loose. You'll see that on some of these. So one time you might be laid in and you might be pushing forward on that, and it's going to react differently than if you're laid in flat or if you're pulling back a little bit on it. So it's just hard to be super consistent, and all those things make a difference on where your bullet lands. So just wanted to talk with you guys about that when you're getting some of these rifles, some of these setups. I've not had anybody complain about accuracy, not a single person, but those are things that you want to look out for when you're shooting it. How consistent that your setup is will make a difference on how consistent that your rifle will shoot. Because the reality of it is, you can be dead on your target when you break that shot, but the gun reacts. When that gun fires, it will react in some way or another. And if it's not reacting consistent, you're going to see that on your groups. The other thing is, if you're shooting any long distance at all, it's kind of the hunter's way to throw that gun over a backpack or something. But if you're shooting, 200-300 yards, that's fine. But if you're shooting long range stuff, you're going to see that inconsistency leave pretty quickly. So I just want to talk with you about that and make sure that you're doing these things to get the optimal amount of accuracy out of these rifles. All right, so here's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I believe I mentioned some of this in an earlier video a little bit, but I wanted to put it in this video as well. And that is, what are you doing with your hands? Where are you putting your hands? And there's a few ways that I like to tell my customers. They're all acceptable. So what I would encourage you to do is, I'm going to show you 3 different things, and what I would encourage you to do is shoot 3 different groups and see which one is being the most consistent for you. But the first one is the standard way that pretty much everybody shooting long range does. Doesn't mean it's the best, but it's what a lot of people do. This rifle's shooting really good with it, doing this. And so here's what I'm doing. I'm just using my left hand on the bag and my right hand on the grip. It's a really standard way to do it. It's really simple, and that's it. The other thing that I want to mention with this is, when you're pulling your trigger, square up that trigger finger, square it up to the trigger so you're basically feeling the width of the trigger on your finger. That way you're pulling straight back, not pushing off the side like that. So make sure you're doing that. Just want to mention that. So the other, so this is the primary way. What everybody does, left hand on the bag, changing the bag. I would tell you, if you shoot really good like that, that's great. Shoot like that, because it's, I feel, the fastest, most controlled, because you have one hand changing the bag, the other hand doing the shot. All right, number 2, and I've seen a fair amount of guys shoot this way with a lot of success, especially newer shooters or light rifles with a decent amount of recoil, light Magnum rifles. And that's using, getting everything set up just like this, but then before you shoot, putting 2 fingers on the rings of the rifle. Just with about 10 or 12 pounds down pressure, basically making that 8-pound setup, maybe it's a 300 PRC or a 28 nozzle or something, weigh 20 pounds. So you're just adding straight down pressure. Just don't pull off the side, just add 10 or 12 pounds straight down and then go through your shot. That has helped a lot of guys shoot more consistent with those bigger Magnum rifles that are lighter. And lastly, sometimes I'll shoot and have seen guys, and it's a really steady way to shoot, but it can be a little bit more inconsistent sometimes if you're not paying attention to how much pressure you're putting into your bag. The other thing with all of these, make sure you're putting the same amount of pressure from shot to shot. Down pressure here. Move the bag rather than holding it up a little bit or pushing it down harder. Move the bag till it's as close as you can tell, the same amount of pressure in that bag every time. And then the last thing is setting everything up again. Every one of these starts with your left hand on your bag, setting everything up, but then just before your shot, bringing that second hand up and doing this and going through your shot. So you have 2 hands on the rifle. And I find this works pretty good with your really large Magnums, like 338 Lapua. I have one that I shoot like this some, and it shoots really good like that. And it just gets me really nice down pressure into the bag. As long as it's consistent, it's great, but it gets me a little more pressure into the bag, and it keeps me from having verticals quite as, maybe as much as, just one hand up here. Anyway, just want to throw that in. And I would encourage you to go shoot groups with every one of these styles and see which style is shooting the tightest groups for you, and then do it, that one and that one alone, on every shot you do. Don't rush yourself in the field and you got an elk at 700 yards and you quickly jump down on that rifle and forget to do all this stuff and then shoot over them or under them or something. Make sure you practice it enough to where you're actually, you know, it's just second nature to you. You're grabbing your gun, you're doing the same thing every time. So any one of these three I feel like is acceptable. Just figure out which one works for you. All right, so I could use your help. Sometimes I struggle knowing what content to bring to this channel, or what can I bring to this channel that brings value to my viewers. If you have an idea or anything that you'd like me to cover that pertains to long range or reloading, those kind of things, and you want to see me make a video about it, shoot me a message or leave me a comment. And if I can get a thumbs up and a subscriber, I would be grateful. Until next time, happy shooting and have a wonderful rest of your day.